This is Fusion Capitalism, a clean energy vision for conservatives. Brought to you by industry leader and company CEO, Steve Malink. Here's Steve.
Thanks for joining me for part 2 of my conversation with Aamir Paul, the U.S. country president for Schneider Electric. Aamir, in part 1, you touched on your company's aggressive goals by 2025. Can you be more specific? How close to zero carbon will Schneider Electric be?
Yeah, so if you look at the 11 concrete commitments we've made, they go across a number of areas. So in climate, we've talked about growing our green revenues in areas where we can absolutely tie back to sustainability and climate initiatives. We are on track in that time frame to deliver 800 million tons of carbon emission reduction for our customers. We're going to reduce carbon emissions from our top 1,000 suppliers by 50% in that time frame. We've looked at resources, so in our products, we're going to increase the use of green materials by about 50%. We've committed in the same time frame to make sure that our packaging goes from single-use plastic, which is obviously a big problem from recycling, to recyclable products, including recyclable cardboard. We've looked at measures in terms of confidence with our supply base, including strategic suppliers and the quality of work they provide their employees. And then there are initiatives around what we are doing at gender equality and other things as well. So it's a combination of those elements. And then in that, we have timeframes that, frankly, we're looking to accelerate, but it's very closely tied to initiatives both in the UN from a sustainability standpoint. And each of these are very publicly listed rankings, which we now are committed transparently to publish along with our financials. And we've been doing that for some time now.
I think that's fantastic. You are bragging about Walmart as a customer and the influence that they have on their supply chain, but it sounds like your company is doing very much the same. And I can see why you were just recognized as such a sustainable company. Kudos. So let's move to the federal level now. What needs to change in your view at the federal government level for America to address the growing climate crisis?
I'm always impressed by our capacity to do incredible things in this country. I'm sometimes reminded of Winston Churchill's quote, which says, you can count on Americans to do the right thing, but when they've exhausted all other options.
Yes.
So perhaps that's how we got here on our climate journey. I think I'm personally very encouraged, and we as a company are incredibly encouraged by the Biden administration's re-entry into the Paris Accord. We think this is a global issue and requires collaboration. We think there's an incredible business opportunity. Our initiatives that started in the late 60s and the work that happened in DARPA and NASA led to the creation of the internet, and a lot of our structural advantage in technology in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s came from that. We think there's a similar investment in clean energy and connectivity that we can be doing right now. And, there's that famous line that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think the U.S. has an opportunity to role model in its own self-interest, in its self-interest of energy independence, of quality of life, of air quality, and in terms of developing new technologies that can continue driving progress and create new jobs. If you look at, just job creation, the quality of clean energy jobs, both in the quantity and the pay structure that they create, is incredibly exciting. And so we think there's a real opportunity to not just affect positive outcomes in terms of the infrastructure and energy independence, but also affect positively the climate goals for the country as a whole.
Great. That's good to hear. So, Aamir, tell us more about what you do as the U.S. country president for Schneider Electric.
Look, we're organized like a lot of companies are in a very basic matrix model, and it operates on a lot of trust between the different stakeholders. So we have teams that develop products and both internally as well as through acquisition. Then we have teams that are in the operations, and their job is to take those products and solutions and help make them work for our customers. And then we have functional teams in finance and supply chain. So I come at the sort of customer end of that matrix. I work with my team and my leadership to make sure that we can best represent our solutions to our customers, and more importantly, listen to our customers and make sure that we are working for them. And what that practically translates into is I used to joke that I lived on American Airlines. That's not been true for the last year, but I've actually had the privilege to speak to even more customers because it's just logistically easier for everybody. So, it starts with having a conversation and understanding what problems they have, what issues they're trying to address, and then working with them to find creative ways to tackle those problems. And we do that, like I said, from very basic but scaled out solutions like home builders. D.R. Horton, one of the largest home builders in the U.S., uses our products to build new homes. And home construction in the U.S. has been on the rise as low mortgage rates and the need for more space has driven that. To data centers, to healthcare, to industrial facilities. I'm very proud of the work we've done with the Port of LA. The Port of LA is one of the largest import ports in the country. And they had a problem where they said they wanted to have a cleaner footprint. So when a ship came into the port, they didn't want them to run their diesel engine because obviously that pollutes more. And they wanted a mechanism to basically electrify power into the infrastructure on the port. So the ship would come in and then connect to the port through an electrical structure. So think of an electrical car, but for a ship. So how do you electrify an entire port and create what's called shore-to-ship power solutions? Well, they came to us and we worked with them. And they're one of the few ports now in the country that has that clean footprint where no diesel engines are used in the port area and it's all electrical power. And now they're working on electrifying their entire fleet, their trucking fleet that works on the port. So all the import goods that come in through the Port of LA are now cleaner in terms of the overall transport carbon footprint. So those are examples of the problems we love to solve, and most of my job is about talking to customers and understanding those problems and then connecting our teams. Internally, it's really about facilitating collaboration between our teams and making sure that we are balancing the tactical necessities, and we had to do a lot of that last year, while staying focused on the long-term impact we want to have, our mission as a company. It's a privilege to be in this role. It's a privilege to be part of this team, and I work with a lot of great people.
Very interesting. So I guess let me end this interview with a question about your personal interests and passions. Was there anything in your background growing up or in the earlier part of your career that led you to where you are today, as part of a company that's helping lead the world to making us more sustainable?
I advise a lot of students at my alma mater, and I tell them to try and find ways to invest in serendipity, which confuses them. But, I could give you a very sort of elegant review of how my career evolved in retrospect. But in reality, at the time, there were just a set of choices and a lot of luck, a fair amount of hard work, and occasionally taking sort of a risk on something that felt right, but I had no data to back it up. So I was trained as a chemical engineer. I had the epiphany at 19 that most chemical plants are not in big cities, and I grew up in big cities. So I thought, oh, this could be a problem. And then in the late 90s, the small technology company out of Austin, Texas called Dell was on campus, and I was in awe of what they were doing. And I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to join them. And it was a fabulous place. Some of my fondest memories and great friendships were formed there. I was there for 13 years. I had the privilege with them to work not just in the United States, but in Europe. And so that was an incredible journey. And as I was studying chemical engineering, I'd never imagined that I'd be working for a computer company and never imagined that I'd be working in sales, right? So those things evolved. When I was leaving Dell, I made a list of things that I wanted to do. And I had not heard of Schneider Electric. I had heard of APC, who had worked with at Dell. But on that list was I wanted to be at the beginning of something. I joined Dell in 1999, 2000. The PC revolution in reality started in the late 80s. So I wanted to be at the very start of something. The second thing is I wanted to do something that was going to have an effect on more than just the outcome for the company, that had a broader social footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly believe that would be in software. I had not considered anywhere else. And then the third thing I put in is that I wanted to be part of a group of people where the why was more than just economic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so when I put those things together, I started again having, and there are lots of wonderful companies out there that have the same ethic. But I met people from my former company that had worked at Schneider. I met some of the people at Schneider, and it seemed really exciting. But for someone growing up in the tech sector to move to an energy company felt different. But it's been a great journey, and the best way I can describe it is if from 1995 to 2010, and maybe even later, the iPhone is only 8 years old, 9 years old. You think about the effect of connectivity on people, and we've only connected, a certain percentage of the population on the planet. Now, what happens when we connect infrastructure, when we connect production, when we connect transport? As we digitize and connect everything and we understand what's happening in that environment, what does that do for our operational capabilities, and what effect can that have on the world? And that's a super exciting thing. So in some ways, the exciting part is we're just at the beginning of the sustainability journey. And while we have a lot of work to do, I'm an incredible optimist on what we can achieve together.
I've often said that the clean energy revolution is the greatest opportunity of the 21st century. And so you were stating that in other
I
ways, but
completely agree. Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
so gosh, it's been a great pleasure to talk with you, Aamir, and so happy that there's companies out there leading with vision and showing leadership for others around the world on where we need to move. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Fusion Capitalism. To find out more about Steve Malink and his book, go to fusioncapitalism.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.